Hello? Is anybody there? It's so lonely here. Where is everybody? Jim? Jim, where are you?
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem.
Well, g'day, one and all, live from Australia. It's Brendo, one half of the Gaming Lovers, because we're a very special multinational initiative at the moment. Where is my wife? Where is my usual co-host? She is currently still in the United States. Say hello to everyone, darling.
Howdy, y'all. It's me, Jem. I'm in Tampa, Florida at the moment.
What are you doing there? Why did you not come home with me? This is confusing. People are concerned. Our relationship is still intact, correct?
It is. It's just long distance at the moment. But yeah, I'm traveling with my sister, Natalie, and having lots of adventures. Soon we'll be in Mobile, Alabama. So that should be interesting.
Well, that's the place to be, I'm sure. No offence, of course. I'm sure Mobile, Alabama is a lovely place.
I'll find out soon.
Unfortunately for me, I'm back to work, back to everyday life. You still get the life of luxury for a few more weeks, but we can still talk video games, and that's what's really important in life, is it not?
Exactly.
Well, 2 episodes ago, we talked about what we intended on playing on this holiday that we shared and that you're still experiencing. But how did we fare? Did we actually play the games we opted to bring along? Did we enjoy them? Were they the right fit? We're going to find out right now in our usual gaming goals segment. Drop me a beat, darling. Drop me a beat. Gaming goals is back. Never fear, because gaming goals is back. That was a terrible rap, but that's not my profession, so I don't care. I thought I could actually think of something on the fly. I'll fix that in post. I'll fix that in post.
Good luck with that. Okay, so what did you manage to actually play, Brendo, while you were traveling in the States with me?
Well, my intended games, I bought a lot more than I actually ended up playing, as is the case with these sort of things, but most of my gaming cycled around 3 key titles on this trip, and one of them was not actually planned as being a option, but thanks to a challenge dropped by you, well, that's how we ended up. The first of which is a 2D side-scrolling action called Iconoclasts on the PS Vita. I quite enjoyed this game. You play as a female mechanic called Robin. You basically Metroidvania your way through a bunch of scenarios and settings, and there's actually a pretty decent little plot in there too.
How long did you actually play it?
Well, part of the reason I chose this game is because I figured I could play it start to finish on one of the flights, but that certainly didn't happen. I probably sunk about 3 hours into this game. As I said, the plot was a bit more involved than I expected to be in this style of game from an indie developer. I quite liked the character dynamics. There's no actual voice acting or anything, but even in pixel art, they were so expressive that it was just really filled with character. The combat was neat, different weaponry that you pick up, all those sort of things, power-ups, upgrades, crafting. I had a good time with that game, but unfortunately for it, it probably got the least playtime over this holiday out of the 3 primary titles that I brought along.
Nice. Now, I know you bought Darkest Dungeon specifically for this holiday. Did you beat
it? Did I beat it? That's definitely a negative.
Did you even play it?
I did definitely play it. And it did eat up quite a bit of time, which is what I wanted it to be. Now, the problem I had with Darkest Dungeon, it is a interesting sort of game in that it is depressing to play, which is not really what you want when you are trying to enjoy an uncomfortable flight. You are cramped in your seat. You are not enjoying the food. You don't want to be pushed further into depression by playing a game that's basically a guaranteed failure state.
You pick the loveliest games to play.
I truly do. Now, unlike something like XCOM, I don't mind if a game is difficult to the point of feeling helpless, as long as there's still the glimmer of victory. XCOM, for example, does definitely do that. You go well for a while, and then things start to get a bit rocky, and suddenly you feel like you're overmatched for quite a while. Now, unfortunately for Darkest Dungeon, it feels like from second one, minute one of your gameplay experience, you're already on that downhill slope into despair. It's part of the quote-unquote charm of the game, but I didn't... It sounds so stupid, but I did not enjoy the depressing experience that was Darkest Dungeon. It probably was not the best fit for playing in a long session like I planned to on this flight. Maybe a bit here and there, 10 minutes spread over different days might be more comfortable. But unfortunately, Darkest Dungeon was a bit of a swing and a miss when it came to the choices that I brought along for this holiday.
Did you bring along anything that was a favourite, I guess, for the holiday?
Surprisingly, it was a game that I had actually no intention of playing on this holiday. Now, during this holiday, you actually challenged me to play a game that I declared would not be a good fit for playing without an internet guide or anything like that, and that was LucasArts' Day of the Tentacle Remastered, which is on my PS Vita, has been for a while, and I brashly stated it would be foolish for somebody to attempt to play that sort of game without a guide, and yet you, your cheeky self, decided it would be fun to challenge me to actually try it.
Mm-hmm.
You cheeky self.
Me so cheeky.
Now, for those who don't know, LucasArts had a series of point-and-click adventures back in the 90s that were a resounding success, for sure. But sometimes they're a bit obtuse, their puzzle solutions make you think like a cartoon character would, otherwise you've got no hope of success. Now, interestingly enough, I thought that trying to play a game like this would be absolutely no fun without a guide, and I'm sort of right in some aspects. However, one of my flights from Orlando, Florida, where you're close to at the moment, back to Los Angeles, the day before I flew back from Los Angeles to Melbourne, Australia. Orlando to LA, 5-hour flight. I had the intention of playing maybe an hour of the Day of the Tentacle, maybe an hour and a half. I played that game for the entirety of that 5-hour flight.
The whole flight.
The whole flight. A game that I thought I would have little enjoyment because you have to try and pick up every item you can. And you have to try to figure out a solution. You're like, I need that item that that guy has, but he won't give it to me. How can I do this? Is it a dialogue choice? Does I have to use an item that I have? Do I have to combine items that I have? I have like 20 things in my inventory. This is going to take a lot of trial and error. Now, as far as killing time on a flight, this game was exceptional.
I'm sensing a but.
Well, there is a but. The reason it took up so much time was because of the degree of trial and error involved. Now, mind you, on that return flight from LA to Melbourne as well, that sucker is a 16-hour flight. So let's just say I had some time to kill. Now, in this game specifically, there are some puzzles that I literally hit roadblocks on for an hour at a time, and I was just not making any progress for that whole 60 minutes. But once the light bulb got illuminated in my head, once I figured out exactly what to do, or sometimes just lucky dipped it and accidentally figured out a puzzle solution, which did happen once or twice, that feeling of progress being opened up again is so addictive. Maybe might be a bit of a strong word, but it does definitely feel so rewarding to do that.
I guess it's kind of like when you do escape rooms, like real life ones, and sometimes you can just get so stuck what should be a really easy one to get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do figure it out, or, call the attendant for help and get the right mindset for the style of puzzles, it can really help get, the gears going and being on the right wavelength for what you need to do to get progress in that sort of thing.
Yeah. Now, in my defense, you just said you can call the attendant in an escape room if you do get stumped, and that's always an option. But I was challenged to not refer to any guides, 0 tips, no Googling, no hashtag searches, nothing. I'm on my own, and so when I get stuck, I have got a couple of pieces of paper with notes scribbled on it. I have a list of items that I was stumped on. I have chattering teeth. I have Boo Boo Be Gone, which is like whiteout, correction fluid for paper. I have red paint. I have a scalpel. I have a bottle of wine. I have soapy water and a brush. I have a hamster. All these sort of things that I'm trying to apply. How can I use them? Now, the tricky part about this game is that it takes place in 3 different time zones. You play as 3 separate characters, and let me tell you, they're great names. You've got Bernard, Laverne, and Hoagie. I mean, that's an all-star cast, if you ask me.
Hoagie?
Hoagie. Just like the big sandwich, a hoagie.
Oh, dear.
So, you are separated in time and you're trying to activate everybody's time machines, which are called chronojohns because they're basically porta potties with a flux capacitor attached. I mean, that's the deluxe model of portable toilet.
Oh, God.
So you can flush items to other characters in other time zones. Some things can't be flushed. Like a hamster, they can't be flushed down a chronojohn. That's out of the equation. But other things, pretty much everything else that isn't organic, can be flushed and end up in a different time zone. Now, you're working around the same sort of building, but in different time zones, they are used for different purposes. You have different NPCs there, different puzzles to solve. And so you have an assortment of items that you're throwing back and forth through time to try to find the next solution. You might have 5 or 6 puzzles in progress, but you're stuck on all of them. And so you're like, okay, I need this guy to sign that contract so I can get money. But how do I get him to sign the contract? He's not willing to do it. I need to get him willing to do it. Okay, I've managed to finally get the hamster to the future, but now he's wet, cold, and tired, and I can't get him to do what he needs to do until he's warm. These are the sort of situations that I've been thinking about almost non-stop ever since I started this game, and I kind of love it.
I can't get past toilets. It just reminds me of Harry Potter.
Yeah, but they weren't time-travelling toilets now, were they?
Oh, but they're still teleportation. I don't know, there's something.
It's kind of grody.
So how did you go?
With my progress of Day of the Tentacle?
Yes, sir.
Well, you thankfully get a percentage meter on your save file, so you can always tell exactly how far along you are. I did not technically beat the challenge that you threw down. You asked me to beat this game on these flights before I got home. That did not happen. I mean, I think the runtime of this game, if you know what you're doing, you could probably blast through it in 2 hours. But I've currently racked up about 8, maybe more. But I'm still having fun, and I am still determined to try and beat this game without a guide. I have gotten to the 80% mark. 80%. 80. And there were times I was stuck at 24% and I thought, I'm going to have to Google something because I'm stuck. And then I finally clicked that piece. And then I got stuck at about 48%. And then I got stuck at about 70%. And now I've made it to 80. I think I can do it. But as it stands, I have no freaking idea what to do next.
Well, you have until I get back from the States. How about that?
Okay. We'll have that as my backup gaming goal try and beat Day of the Tentacle. 20% of a game. Try to beat 20% of a game in a couple of weeks. That sounds easy, right?
Theoretically.
Now, I've gone back to work since I returned, and I've had train trips where it's taken me an hour to get where I'm supposed to be. I've played that game and made no progress until the last 5 minutes of that train trip, and then I'm like, yes, it's all worth it. I finally figured out how to use this boo-boo be gone, and it just gives me a sense of wonder and pleasure, just like video games should. Not frustration and depression like Darkest Dungeon. So I brought along probably about 12 games to play on this holiday. They're the only 3 that I technically played while on my holiday. And I'm curious about what you have been up to on this trip of yours as well. Because if I'm not mistaken, you brought along your phone, your iPad, your 3DS, or sorry, your 2DS. Let's not get the facts wrong. And your PS Vita. 4 video gaming devices. How much video games have you actually played?
Not much.
Have you actually played anything on this holiday?
Not properly.
Well, that's it. You're fired. I'm going to find a new co-host.
Okay, I've mentioned that I played Stardew Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been playing Pogo, like Pokemon Go, which has been great because there's a lot of Pokemon here in the States that we don't have in Australia that are like region specific. So that's been kind of fun, collecting things that don't appear in Australia. My Vita or DS? I haven't really used them properly, no.
Now, I had a feeling this was going to happen, and I didn't want to make you feel bad, but you like the fact that when you activate Netflix in a different country, you have different shows than you're used to on it. And you got American television and things like that will keep you entertained. So I had a feeling that this might happen. And when you're on flights, you got the movie options and you've got TV shows and you've got Gilmore Girls to sleep through for 6 hours if you opt to. I mean, that's your choice.
Hey, it's good to sleep through things you already know. I don't want to sleep through a movie that I haven't seen before.
That's definitely true. Interesting that you did bring up Pokemon Go because I did play a fair bit of that as well. I did forget that. Like you said, region-exclusive Pokemon, and I tried my darndest to capture one of the current 3 legendaries that are on different regions of the Earth and failed on a couple of attempts of that. But it was kind of amusing in Disneyland because I was responsible for fast-passing the group's tickets. So I'd collect everyone's tickets from our family group and run my way to the other side of the park to get our fast passes for whatever ride we're interested in that day. But then I might take my time heading back because, oh, what's this? On Pokemon Go, something that I don't have is on the other side of the park. Don't mind if I do. I'll just take a slight detour on my way back to the group. So I did get some looks about thinking, how long does it take you to go and get fast passes? But it was all for a good cause. I caught a Carnivine and a Seviper and a Tauros and an Illumise and yeah, it was well worth it. Well worth it.
We'll have to compare Pokemon when I get back and see if I've caught any that you haven't.
You better not have, otherwise we definitely have to trade.
Either that or I should make sure I have multiples right.
Yes, please.
So yeah, that's pretty much my gaming goals. But I have been shopping for video games over here, but we'll talk about that in the main topic, I think, of this week's episode.
We definitely... Although I've done about 13 hours of Day of the Tentacle and I've done about 5 hours of Darkest Dungeon and I did about 3 hours of Iconoclasts, I probably spent more hours than those combined shopping for video games, so I don't know what that says about me as a person. Sometimes I enjoy buying games more than I enjoy playing games, I guess.
It's an addiction.
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at BrendoGem. That's BrendoJem.
Now, one of my favourite things to do while we have a United States holiday, we've done it 3 times now, and it's still one of my favourite activities. It's not sightseeing, it's not theme parks, It's not even driving on the wrong side of the road. It's treasure hunting GameStop stores and similar in the hunt for region exclusive or simply games that don't get physical releases in Australia. Games that we can't find anywhere else. I love so much digging into a GameStop store over in the US and just seeing what's there.
Yes. Sadly, though, what used to be quite a vibrant Vita collection seems to be dwindling a bit. The last one I explored didn't have any Vita games whatsoever. I was heartbroken.
Oh no, the poor Vita. We talked about its demise a few episodes ago, but we still love it. And the fact that there are still, even if there's only a handful of games in their stores, and even if there's only a handful of games in our stores in Australia, those handful of games are often different, and more importantly, the games that you in particular really enjoy playing on the Vita.
I love them so much. A lot of the visual novels, and there'll be plenty that we sometimes get, but only digitally in Australia. And I think we usually like to buy the hard copies if we can, especially for the Vita, because it means we can share and we can both get trophies and things.
Yes.
And only have to buy one game rather than downloading it twice on different accounts.
And you factor in as well that quite often the physical copies, which are heavily discounted, the ones that we found, are often equal to or cheaper than, sometimes greatly cheaper than, the current digital price of a single copy on the PlayStation Store.
Yes, one in particular that we found was one of the Code Realize sequels. On sale on the digital Australian store, the PlayStation Store in Australia was about $63 Aussie dollars. On sale in GameStop here in the States for $20 US. Even when you do the conversion rates and everything, that was still massively cheaper.
Yeah.
So very happy with that sale.
So what have you picked up on our treasure hunts? I'll give you the floor for a bit. I've been talking for a while. What have you found? What did you actually purchase on this trip?
Okay, so both of the Code Realize sequels, there was Future Blessings and Wintertide Miracles.
And you enjoyed the first Code Realize game, so I'm sure you'll be all over these.
Yes. I'm actually surprised that they did a sequel for this, but I guess it was popular enough to get two of them. So there's even an anime adaptation of it, which isn't bad. Sidetracking. There were a couple of ones that one is familiar with, but had gotten decent reviews. And when we saw them in the shops, we're like, okay, let's grab them. They're good prices and everything like that. There was Seven Scarlet and the Psychedelica series. So those are new for us, but should be interesting, and hopefully some new beloved additions to our Vita collection. But there is one in particular that I'm hunting. Haven't been able to find anywhere.
The hunt is on. I love a good treasure hunt.
Yes. It's kind of set in Edo period of Japan, so a lot of samurai fights and things like that. And the first game was called Kyoto Winds, the subtitle. I can't pronounce the official name.
Hakuoki.
And then the sequel that I'm hunting for is Edo Blossoms. And I've been itching for this sequel because they left the first game on a cliffhanger, which is practically unheard of with visual novels.
That's true.
So yeah, it's I'm like, I need to know what happens. And yeah, so I'm fascinated to see that story properly resolve and have my questions answered if I can find it. So apparently there is one place in Las Vegas that has it in stock, so hopefully it stays there until I get there.
Well, at least you can check online stock quantities.
Very, very true.
Now, you're not the only one who did some video game purchasing as well. I have also picked up some Vita titles. Trying out the Ys series, YS, Ys, with Memories of Celestia, Memories of Celicia, maybe it's Celicia, something like that. It's Ys 4. The series is gone on for years. I think it debuted back in like the NES era. It's been going on. There's been remakes, remasters. I've decided to just grab one because it was cheap. It was about $10 US, and I figured I'll try it out, see if I like the style of the series, and maybe I'll work my way through that, as I do. I can't seem to play a single game in a series without going through the entire thing, which is bad for my time and for my money, but good for my knowledge of the series.
And on top of that, you found some other gems in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Sonic game. I think we'd mentioned that before, that you had ordered it and we got that for like, what, $3?
$2.99 US. I picked up a Genesis copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, one of my all-time favourite Sonic games. I have a US model Genesis, even though I live in Australia, and thought, well, why not? I get to play it on original hardware. I love it. So that was a fun little bargain. Also picked up Odin Sphere Lifehizer. Why is it all the games that I bought on the Vita I can't pronounce?
At least I'm not the only one.
And more importantly, during our Top 100 IGN episode, we were talking about games that I desperately wanted to play one day. There were a few on that list that I had not ever played, and I vowed that I wanted to get to them one day. One of those was Chrono Trigger, a game that came out on a couple of different consoles, but it is available on the original Nintendo DS, a system and games that are region-free. And so I found a copy of that in the US for a reasonable price. It's sort of out of circulation, so it's difficult to get your hands on these days. I decided to pull the Chrono Trigger and buy that one. So coming soon on the Gaming Lovers podcast, Brendo is going to hit one of the games that he has wanted to play for years. Chrono Trigger will be ticked off on Brendo's gaming bucket list. So look forward to that, because I am. And if you're not, well, I am anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'm the host here, not you.
How much do those go for on eBay?
Oh, if you want a mint condition Chrono Trigger, you're looking at hundreds, without a doubt. Hundreds of dollars for a brand new copy. This was a second-hand one. I didn't mind, and let's give it a spin one day and see how we go. And
hopefully it's in good working order.
And the best part is, because it's a time travel game, if I don't like it, I can just go back in time. I can just flush it down the Chrono John and get my money back, right?
Let's see how that goes, eh?
And of course, in typical Brendo fashion, I cannot control my wallet sometimes. I spent all these money on all these games in the US, and I came back to my everyday life, my everyday consoles. I've got a backlog of games, so you know what that means, don't you? I bought new games on launch day, because that's what I do. I have a condition. And Team Sonic Racing, I'll be talking a lot about that right after this.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side, and you could be featured in the next podcast.
Now, all the games we've talked about so far are games that we've played while we were actually on our holiday. I've been back for the most part of a week at the moment, and have gotten right back into the thick of things on my console home gaming. One game that my lovely wife bought for me several weeks, potentially even months ago when she saw it at a good price, was Red Dead Redemption 2, which I decided to start. A game that I obviously wanted to play before it even came out. Once review scores started to hit the streets, and the game looked and sounded great, I knew that I would want to play it someday. And so we had it purchased already. We've given it a spin. I've only maybe sunk a couple of hours into that so far this week, but I have tried a little bit of the single player and even a little bit of Red Dead Online. Two very similar but somewhat very different experiences. Now, I won't go into it too much. I haven't played enough to really give a proper verdict. However, I did find the start of Red Dead Redemption 2 to be quite slow. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if the pacing of the game overall stands the test of time. A slow starting game isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, with games such as The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, things along that line, Final Fantasy XIII, a slow start can definitely get you off on the wrong foot of your enjoyment. You put that disc in your console, you're all excited to start a new epic game, and if it takes 3 to 5 to 12 hours to get going at maximum speed, a lot of people, that can turn them off early. And so I'm still sticking with it. I did find it to be a slow start, but it's a chill game. It's a surprisingly chill game. I don't really find that when I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2, I want to play at full speed. I'm going slow. A to B by horseback is always going to be slower than a Grand Theft Auto, where you're going from A to B in a fast, luxury car. But even just going from A to B, I might hunt some animals on the way, which in itself can take, 5 to 8 minutes of just tracking and hunting one animal that you've picked up the trail of. So it's a slow progress to play this game. And even when I've gotten to locations like a little town or things like that, I spend a bit exploring, checking the catalogs in the stores, even just going to the saloon and hanging out, goofing around, or playing poker, a game that in itself you could play for hours at a time if you're so inclined, inside of the main campaign. There's lots of little distractions. I've found it to be a nice, relaxing game, de-stresses me because of the slower pace, and I'm actually enjoying it more than I thought at that less intense, more chill speed. It's kind of nice. Now, I did also try a little bit of the online with a friend. They invited me to their game. I decided, why not? It's not what I usually like to play in those sort of games, or in any games, really. I find online communities to be toxic more often than not, and I don't really enjoy those experiences. However, we did have quite a bit of fun playing Red Dead Online. I tried to create a version of myself. I have a bald head, I have a beard, and when I tried to pick the right nose, the right eyes, the right beard style and colour, what I ended up with was not quite Brendo, but it looked an incredible amount like the WWE NXT superstar Tommaso Ciampa. Former NXT champion, and it was almost a picture-perfect Ciampa. I thought it looked great, so there we go. Off into the wilderness he is. Of course, I wanted to pick a relevant Wild West-sounding name, and since I had a tendency in the main campaign to fall off cliffs, I decided what better name to call myself than Clifford McGill. Clifford McGill, The Adventures of Clifford McGill, Red Dead Online. We'll see how that progresses. We did some races, we did a little single mission, but we actually had a bit of trouble getting things working. I know it's a bit of a slow progress with these sort of online games. They're not 100% complete. There's always additions and improvements being made. So it's a little bit sketchy at the moment. We did have a bit of fun. Good times were had, and of course Clifford McGill did fall off a cliff and die once. So that's what happens when you're named as such. It's your destiny to fall off cliffs. Now, something that's a much faster-paced game that I've also been enjoying, day one launch, I, of course, being the Sonic fan that I am, had to play Team Sonic Racing, a game that I was quite apprehensive about the very concept of as it was in development. Now, I have obviously had years of experience in the kart racing genre throughout my gaming life. Mario Kart obviously is the big one, but I've also enjoyed games like Diddy Kong Racing, Crash Team Racing, these sort of games that have a single-player component as well. And of course, possibly my favourite kart-based racer of all time, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, basically the game before Team Sonic Racing by the same developers. Now, when news broke that Team Sonic Racing was going to be the next game in this series, I guess you'd say, I was apprehensive for two key reasons. A, I didn't think that removing the extra Sega characters from the series was going to be a smart move. You want a variety of characters, and although Mario has his assortment of characters, Sonic usually gets more flack than most for these additional characters, the sidekicks, the alternate protagonists in some games. People seem to hate on them a lot more than I think is warranted. Now, for myself, I love the Sonic cast, I love the Sonic universe, and for someone like me, having people like Blaze the Cat Vector the crocodile, even Big, good old stupid dumb Big the cat, whose introduction to the series was a fishing game as part of Sonic Adventure 1, I like those characters, and I'm happy to have them as the playable characters. Now, if you're more of a casual Sonic fan, you may know Sonic, you may know Tails, and you might know Knuckles. You've probably seen that diabolical Eggman before. But apart from that, you might not know who Silver the Hedgehog is. You may not know who the Chow are. You may not know there even is a Metal Sonic. But for me, I find there's enough variety in that cast from the Sonic universe. There's some people I don't think should be in it, like Zavok from the Deadly Six in Sonic Lost World. That's an absolute waste of a character. But the rest of them I'm happy with, and I actually enjoyed playing as a variety of the characters in this game. Now, secondly, the other thing I was very worried about during production of Team Sonic Racing was the very name, Team Sonic Racing. This game, you can play normal kart-based action, up to 12 races on a track. You get power-ups, you get boosts, you can drift. Pretty much everything you expect from a kart racer ever since Super Mario Kart made its debut on the Super Nintendo. Pretty much everyone has used that dynamic. The difference in Team Sonic Racing is that they wanted to make a team-based game. Teams of 3, trios, riding around a track, and I was worried that it would be yet another example of Sonic trying to add in an unnecessary gimmick in gameplay. Now, this has happened throughout many Sonic games before, but in this racing game, I thought that would fall flat. But now that I've played it, and the reviews that I've read reflect this as well, I think the team racing aspect of Team Sonic Racing is the best part of it. The differences it brings into the action. You can pick up item boxes by driving through little wisp power boxes, which are basically the same as you would have in a Mario Kart. You have a missile, which acts like a green shell would. You have a boost. You have a ghost power. You have cubes, which drop behind or get thrown forward. Basically a banana peel. All your usual things, but they use the wisps from Sonic Colors as the variety of tools. If you pick up an item that you don't need, if you're in first place and you pick up a missile and your teammates are behind you, you can offer it to them and they can accept it. If you're falling behind terribly, you can request an item from a teammate, whether they be AI or another human player online, or even split screen. Thank the heavens that there is split screen gaming. I love split screen couch-based gaming. I like that social aspect far more than online. Now, the reason why you have to look out for your teammates in this game is that, sure, you may come first out of a pack of 9 races, but your teammates, if they come 9th and 7th, you get scored based off your team ranking. First place might be worth 15 points, but those last 2 may not be worth much at all. And so you might come in first individually, but if your teammates sandbag you, you will not win that race overall. It's a very interesting dynamic because you not only have to look out for yourself, you have to look out for your teammates. If they spin out on something ahead of you and you drive by them like within a couple of feet, you will actually help them boost back into action much, much faster than if they had to start accelerating from a standing stop by themselves. And in addition, whoever is in the lead out of your trio will leave a trail behind them, which you can drive in to get an extra boost and then slip out of it and get a slingshot. And the fact that you're constantly trying to play as a team, you may take out an opponent here or there, but the focus on helping out your teammates, making sure the 3 of you finish well and not just one of you, it brings a fantastic twist to the gameplay of something that really hasn't evolved too much since the early days. And it's so surprising to say, but I think this was a fantastic addition to the kart racing genre. Now, I mentioned earlier Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed. I loved that racing game for many reasons. The variety of air, land, and sea racing is not found in this one. However, there's single-player challenge mode where you go through different, not only races, but different trials, whether it be trying to collect rings to get a certain amount. Each ring you pick up extends your timer by a hair's breadth of a fraction, but if you pick up 20 rings around a corner, you'll add a few seconds to your time and can continue this time trial where you collect rings. There's other little challenges. It's something that, although Sonic games usually fall flat, they find creative ways, the Sonic developers always find creative ways to use existing levels for additional challenges. Since the days of Sonic Adventure, where you'd finish a level normally and then you'd finish it with a different set of objectives and then you'd finish it with a hard set of objectives. Same again, Sonic Adventure 2, all the way through Sonic Colors. Every Sonic game has additional challenges inside its existing levels that you can do for extra fun and experience or achievements. And Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed had these as well, where you'd have different race types. You might have to try to do a simple time trial. You might do a simple Grand Prix where you have to finish first over 4 races. And this game, Team Sonic Racing, has this as well. There is one game type I do not like, and a lot of people do not like, and that's the Daredevil one, where you have to slalom your way around posts as close to them as possible without striking them to get points. And if you go on one side, you get a slight multiplier. If you go on the other side, you get more points. It's tricky, and control-wise it can be tricky, but different characters handle different ways. You can unlock different vehicle modifications to fine-tune the character you like. It's good stuff, and that's another thing that's fantastic about this game, is that you have 3 main different character types. You have a speed type, obviously Sonic, Shadow, Amy, Blaze, Metal Sonic. They're the speed types. They have a faster top speed, faster boosts, but if they get hit, they will spin out for longer, and they do not handle all that well. You have technical style racers like Tails, Silver the Hedgehog, Eggman, and so on and so forth, and they are able to actually drive off the tracks without losing speed, which means if you're a technical racer, you can cut corners and not be penalized. Now that's pretty good. They're not as fast or boost as much as the speed-based characters, but it gives you your own way of finding new paths to get to that first place. And finally, there's power-based characters. Obviously, characters like Knuckles are going to be a power-based character. These are your heavy hitters, and they can plow through almost any obstacle in a match, whether it be an enemy robot crab or a rock that's in the way. These sort of things, they can just plow through them. So if one of your teammates is a power-type racer and they are driving in a straight line through all the obstacles, you can just follow them and avoid all the obstacles yourself because they just blast through them. It's a cool addition and again works into the team-based gameplay. The single-player mode, which is like a team adventure, has 2D sort of static character models with voice acting and an entire storyline as well. Now, if you've played something like a Persona Arena, now while they're not fully animated, you do get back and forth between characters. There is some surprisingly fun dialogue as far as different character interactions over the course of the story. There's a mysterious Tanuki called Dodonpa who has decided to hold a race between all these people. And it's a slightly dangerous endeavor, but everyone suspects that something's going on here. Let's find out what it is by participating in the races. It's a flimsy premise, but it works for a game of this style. If you're not so inclined, you can always skip the character chatting, the story, and just go straight to the events in the adventure mode. Something I'm sure is a blessing for a lot of people. Now myself, obviously, I like the Sonic world. I enjoy the interactions of these characters, and I accidentally didn't realize I had been skipping all the dialogue because I don't know if it's just something that I accidentally set when I was given an option and didn't read it, but I was skipping the dialogue by pressing the X button on the PlayStation 4. The default option is to do these levels, these missions, these events without the story. So, I don't know, maybe if you've been playing Team Sonic Racing, you didn't even realize you were missing out on these things. I have to push the square button to actually start each event with the story dialogue framing it before and after. So it's there if you want it, but it's completely optional. I love the varying challenges and gameplay styles. There's one where you have to basically destroy enemy robots while racing, and I love that so very much. There's other ones like elimination races, where at the end of each lap, whoever is in last place will be eliminated from the race. If you're doing team-based gameplay, you need to make sure that not only yourself, but your teammates are not in that last place, because that is going to hamstring your team score at the end of the race. It's fantastic stuff. I have had a great time with it. I raced online as well and won my very first race, so I'm 100% unbeaten. I got the achievements and the trophies for finishing first in an online race, and that may be all the online I do in Team Sonic Racing, but it has been a fantastic experience. I highly recommend it. If you like Sonic at all, if you like racing games at all, there is no microtransactions. There is, however, randomized loot boxes. You unlock credits for doing races. So after doing a handful of things, you go back to the menu, you spend your credits on a little slot machine, and you get new wheels, new color schemes, new horns. There's actually a surprising amount of customization available for different carts. You can choose different color schemes, different paint styles if you want it shiny, if you want it to look like plastic, if you want it to look reflective. So many different ways you can do it. I have had a great time with this game. I'm surely going to be playing it a lot more in the coming week. And Team Sonic Racing, it seems the Sonic games I get excited for are always disappointing. The ones I think are going to be disappointing end up good. 2 thumbs up from me, and not just because I'm a Sonic fan. I think the gameplay itself is strong enough to warrant 2 thumbs up. 2 hedgehog thumbs from Brendo for Team Sonic Racing.
Share the love. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Gaming Lovers.
Well, it's now time to turn our eyes to the future and look at our future tense gaming goals. Gaming goals, gaming goals, gaming goals. Oh, the time lag from the other side of the planet sort of threw off our song a little bit this week. That's depressing.
That's the only reason it was terrible.
I don't know why we keep trying to sing these things. Anyway, songs aside, there's games to be played this week. I'm pretty sure you can guess where my priorities are going to be. It's on 2 key games. I'm going to be playing some more Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm going to be playing some more Team Sonic Racing. Sonic Team Racing? No, Team Sonic Racing. I always get that mucked up because the game developer that makes Sonic is called Sonic Team. This game is called Team Sonic Racing. The adventure mode in Team Sonic Racing, I'll probably not be able to beat the entire thing this week, but I'll make some progress. Maybe try to get through a couple more map boards, and I'll be happy with that. It's just the secondary title. My main goal is to be enjoying the wonderful Wild West in Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm going to be dabbling a bit in the online as well, so that's going to slow down my progress. I'll be doing my usual thing of playing 2 things at once. It just so happens to both be on the same title. So that's maybe a new experience. Who knows? It'll slow me down, but I'll be enjoying it one way or another.
Are you enjoying it compared to the original Red Dead? Which has been your favourite thus far from original impressions?
This game started off quite slow, so I haven't hit full speed. Let's just say I haven't hit a full gallop yet in this game. It's quite a slow starting game, but I have been enjoying it. The areas I've been in have been a bit more foresty, whereas in the original Red Dead Redemption, anytime that comes to mind, it's desert in my brain. I know there are a variety of wildernesses, but that's what I've experienced so far. I have gotten quite drunk in one section and fell off a balcony, so that's always a plus. Tried to lean on the balcony while drunk, and he just cartwheeled over it. That's good stuff. It's probably too early to tell. Maybe in a week or 2, once I've sunk more hours in, I'll be able to compare it to the original. But I really enjoyed Red Dead Redemption, the first one, so it's going to be a tough old race to compare those two.
Have you played anything else aside from Sonic and Red Dead 2?
I embarrassed myself with a bit of Sekiro as well this week. I forgot to mention that in gaming goals. My good buddy the Falcon came over. Oh my gosh, I forgot about it. I've played more games than I thought. I'll get to that in a second. But when my good buddy Falcon came over the other day, it's the jet lag. I said I'll be using it as an excuse for weeks, and I still am. He wanted to see my skills in Sekiro because we were basically playing and then he'd get stuck on a boss and then I'd beat that boss and I'd feel like, yes, I'm the best. And then he'd get up to a boss that I couldn't beat and he'd pass it and I'd go, no, he's better than me. So he wanted to see my skills. I embarrassed myself terribly because I hadn't played it in weeks. It was a straightaway first time trying it without any practice since before we left for the States. It's been like a month. And I failed miserably, got killed by the boss that we're up to quite quickly, and then he beat us within his second try. So, well, I guess that makes me number 2. Boo to me. Now, one thing I forgot to mention in my earlier gaming goals segment, because I played it this week, my good buddy the Falcon and I decided to try Alan Wake out, which is a pseudo-horror game made by Remedy Entertainment, makers of Max Payne, Quantum Break, and the upcoming Control. Alan Wake, sure, I'm late to the party. It's been out for years. It's an Xbox 360 game. But it's been pretty enjoyable. The combat with the dark creatures in the nighttime is a bit repetitive. That gameplay is always the same. The characters, the story, the concept is interesting. He's a writer who has had a bit of writer's block. So he's gone out to the mountains to try to freshen up his mind and he's had 2 successful books in the past. He needs to, just get over this hump and then get working again. However, he finds pages of his future tense manuscript that he hasn't even written yet, and everything that's being written in it is coming true. So, disaster, kidnapping, danger, excitement, it's all coming true in a book that he hasn't even written yet. Now, that's confusing, but enjoyable. So I've also been playing that. Sorry for throwing things out of order, but I completely forgot I'd even played that this week. It's been a busy week of gaming because I've had withdrawal symptoms so bad I'm just a mess without my video games. So the big question is, darling, now that I've rattled off the 16,000 games that I plan on playing this week, what about your good self? What do you intend? Are you actually going to play some games this holiday or not? Because you're letting down the team. Our gaming goals is a team effort. And I can't be doing all the games as much as I'd like to. I really would like to. It'd be fun.
Look, there's plenty that I want to play.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I don't want to play. It's that I've either been busy or exhausted. Not a great combo for gaming. But I will say this. I'm going to try to play the next sequel, which I think is Future Blessings, as far as Code Realize.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'll give that a go. And as always, when I do my visual novels, I play as organically as possible and just react to things. And if I get a bad end, I get a bad end. And don't use a guide.
It's the way to do it.
As I can. So that'll be my goal. And probably for the foreseeable future, as far as I'm traveling, doing a visual novel probably be a good companion, I think, for this road trip aspect anyway.
Yeah. In your defense, I have had more flights because I flew back from the east coast to the west coast of the States, whereas you are just driving there, so you can't really play games while you're driving.
No.
And neither should you.
My first time driving properly in the US, you've always driven, or we've just taken like Ubers.
So how has Grand Theft Auto Gem Edition been?
Thankfully, smooth sailing so far. So
good to hear.
I'm a little nervous about when we get to LA because it's got a terrible reputation as far as traffic. But hopefully by the time I drive there, I will have, a fair bit of experience and confidence under my belt. So, yay!
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, that's it for this week's episode of The Gaming Lovers. As always, rate, review, find us, subscribe to us on every social media platform imaginable. And until next week, I'm going to go find out how to dry off my freaking hamster in Day of the Tentacle. I'll be right back. See you later, guys. Have a great week. Chowski!
Sayonara!
That's not American.
Sayonara! That's so wrong.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.